Good evening. I'm Dr. Greenbrier Almond, and thank you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Each week on Channel 3, I'm happy to talk about this interface between Christianity and medicine. And I want to harken back to the program that we had last week when we had a very special guest, Mary Allbaugh, representing the American Legion, and Debbie Thacker-Wilfong, representing our own Chief Voting Officer and the voting mechanism for Upshur County as we prepare for an election. Each time we have an election, of course, it's a major event, and I want to emphasize that again this week, and I want to emphasize the role, let's say, of our soldiers, our veterans, and of course their families in our community, and how they enrich us and how they help us so much. And I appreciate what the American Legion did by coming to me and coming to the station here, Channel 3, and asking, can we not emphasize the need to get out vote? And you heard a challenge that we're going to try to have 25% more people vote in this primary election than other elections recently. And you'll see a roll-in here in a little bit, but you'll see that our numbers are not good. Maybe 40%, maybe 50% of those eligible to vote are voting. It'd be nice to have 65% or 75% of those eligible to vote here in Upshur County out voting. We're going to talk a little bit about why that's the case today. But as I say, I appreciate what the American Legion does. I appreciate what all those who will be poll workers will do. And of course, all the elected officials, those who are overseeing the election, what they have done already in preparation. And because I like to emphasize a scripture, I wanted to lift up a verse that I think applies certainly to our men and women in uniform, who, by the way, last week's program and other programs that we do on Channel 3 can go out and often do go out on YouTube. Last week's program went around the world on YouTube, so soldiers overseas can be watching the voting process as it takes place right here in Upshur County, right in West Virginia, in the heart of America. But our soldiers do many things for us. And let me just lift up the 12th chapter of Romans, the first verse. This is about our sacrificial giving that we have come to expect, we have come to appreciate from our soldiers. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters. And Mary Allbaugh, of course, is a veteran, and she represents the sister part, if you will, of our soldiers. And it says, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice. Who else in our society is willing to make a living sacrifice? Yes, of course, our firemen, our policemen, our healthcare workers who work in the ER and other dangerous situations. Many people make that sacrifice. Mothers and fathers do, don't they, for the sake of their children. But actually, overall, very few of us make that living sacrifice. Holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. So I think I want to say that this way because voting is a sacred trust. And it's something, we have a God-given right in our country to do that in the name of freedom. Not everyone in the world has that, though we see the Arab Spring, we see other countries rising up seeking their freedom, and they will not be denied because God, in a sense, has ordained it inside of us. But it's also because we have soldiers who fight and will sacrifice their life. As a prelude also, before we do our roll-in here in a minute, I wanted to just go over the words of the song that is the theme for our program, Tender Loving Care. I want to remind you that Paul J. Cordes, Dennis Cordes, who many of you know in our community's father, wrote this song and recorded it, arranged the music, and copyrighted it in the year 2000. He entitled this song, Tender Loving Care. And over the last 35 years, it exemplifies what we're doing on our program. You heard the words a minute ago, but let me just lift them up to you one more time, because as we vote and prepare to vote, this is very important. A warm hand held when you're in pain, soothing as a springtime rain. Here we are having our springtime rain, and we have parents holding the hands of children. We have those who love us extending their hands in goodbye and hugs to soldiers who go overseas to fight for our freedom. to have a friend right in your corner, your heart will feel a little warmer. Tender, loving care. One thing I've always said about Buchanan and enjoyed over the years as a place to live, grow up and live, is that we have a sense of community, don't we? We're neighbors, helping neighbors. We have people in our corner offering tender, loving care. Each warm and friendly touch lets someone know you care so much. Different ways to touch, isn't there? One of the ways, and I play on words here about a touch screen, computer screen to vote, but we touch the heart of our nation when we have an election, don't we? We select who we're going to allow the privilege of being a public servant and running our nation for the next 2 years, next 4 years. And as an elected official myself on the school board, I know what a privilege it is to represent you. And I welcome feedback from people because I know I'm here as a servant, as a public servant, in a sense, a touch of tender, loving care. It begins with that vote on a touch screen TV voting booth if you vote the computer. But it's such a blessing in disguise, and all at once you realize you have brightened someone's eyes. Tender, loving care. Someone's watching, isn't there? We do everything we do for the sake of our children and our grandchildren, and they're interested in what we're doing, and even children who are not born. I remember my father saying this as he was overseas in Japan at the end of World War II, and my sister Kay was being born, and he would speak of knowing her and knowing myself even before we were born as a twinkle in his eye. So I like that term, a twinkle in his eye. But we're special in someone's eyes, little children's eyes. They're watching us. If we're going to go from 40% vote to 65% vote or 50% vote to 75% vote, we can be sure there are children watching us do that. And to go on, just by being there, you've shown someone how much you care. It'll make your heart feel free. Let someone know you want to share with them some tender, loving care. Each warm and friendly touch lets someone know you care so much. Paul Quartus didn't know how profound he was being as he lifted up those words as we've used them on our theme program, Tender Loving Care, for 35 years. Well, we're going to go to a roll-in. We're going to see what the American Legion is advising us to do, what I'm encouraging you to do, and we're going to come back and talk about the American Legion and the sacrifice, the living sacrifice that folks like them have made for us, and our right to vote.
The American Legion's Get Out the Vote program encourages all Americans to register and vote in all elections. In addition, the members of the Frank B. Bartlett Post number 7 of the American Legion have been encouraged to fully involve themselves in the electoral process by serving as poll volunteers, poll workers, and by encouraging and assisting others to register and go vote. The Frank B. Bartlett Post number 7 of the American Legion takes this responsibility seriously. These are serious times within our country. It is our belief that to make a difference, we have to make every effort right here at home, in our own community, and throughout the great state of West Virginia. The right to vote is a freedom, but it is also the civic duty of all of us, as residents of West Virginians and as Americans. All members of the community are asked to join us, Frank B. Bartlett, Post number 7 of the American Legion, by renewing their personal commitment for continued service to this country, by being politically active as individuals, by working together as a community of people, joining with an organization of veterans who have served our country well. And just maybe we can make a difference by promoting Abraham Lincoln's populace participation in our government. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. It cannot survive as a democratic republic unless the people participate. That is our task. This is an important message for the registered voters of Upshur County who don't vote. The Upshur County Clerk's Office provided the following history. In 2006 through 2010, there were 13,658 registered voters, and only 6,397 participated in the primary. That was 2008, and that was our best showing. The benefits derived from voting are produced by election officials that are in tune with the wishes of the citizens voting their concerns and providing a community in which it is suitable to live, work, and raise a family. Sure everyone remembers the great. The voters must be reminded that their vote guarantees all other rights. Builds schools, constructs major highways, vote, collects taxes, maintains the armed forces, directs the foreign policy, and they must remember how it affects the elderly, the disabled, and the future of our children, and how the impact affects us here at home. History has proven that one vote can make a difference, so it is important that every single vote be heard. Each citizen must be made aware that their vote is important, and that you are willing to help provide an easy access to the election process for them. Voting is a powerful way for a citizen to participate in the government. It gives them a voice in issues that affect their lives. It is the goal of the American Legion and its Get Out the Vote program to encourage more Americans to vote, to suggest activities on how American Legion Post can increase the turnout and serve as a resource to get the job done. And yes, we need your help. The cooperation of the community business, city and county government, and civic organizations are key to the success of our Get Out the Vote campaign. And how can you help us? When we come to your business and ask you to place a "Don't Forget to Vote" flyer, say yes. And when we contact you and ask you if you would place flyers or business cards on the counters, checkout stations, windows, and share this important news with your customers, say yes. And when we ask you to place voting reminders on restaurant menus and placemats or banking and other statements, say yes. And when we ask you to offer a discount to anyone showing his or her voter registration card the week prior to the election, say yes. What can we do in this campaign? We can conduct nonpartisan Get Out the Vote campaigns. We can educate the public on issues and encourage participation in the political process. We can educate all candidates and political parties on the American Legion's issues. And we can promote Americanism, patriotism, and it's your duty, go vote, to all residents. But we cannot endorse or oppose a candidate for public office, and we cannot coordinate activities with a candidate, and we cannot make contributions of money, time, or facilities to a candidate, and we cannot manage, fund, or organize a political action committee. In simple terms, keep in mind this rule of thumb. Get out the vote activities in an American Legion post must be nonpartisan, which simply means the post cannot show or state a preference for or against a particular candidate or candidates, or a particular political party. Our goal is to increase voter participation by 25% in Upshur County. Success will only occur with a strong commitment from everyone involved with the Get Out the Vote campaign. Why is your vote so important? Lower voter participation is a silent threat. Early voting starts on April 25th through May 5th. It underrepresents young people, early at the Upshur County the disabled, during the hours of education, minorities, 4:30 Monday through Friday. Vote on Saturday, April 28th or May 5th during the hours of 9 a.m. Contact one of the following Legion, and remember, every vote is a volunteer. All volunteers must attend a 1-hour truest form of Americanism. You can contact Post Personal Responsibility to our Government Adjutant Mary Allball, the act of voting, and you can also get with Auxiliary Unit Number 7. Don't forget to vote. Or call 304-460-7377 or 304-613-7092.
Fellow citizens, we have our marching orders, don't we? Get out and vote. And the American Legion, who through their sacrifice has earned the right to advise us to vote as citizens, are telling us about our sacred duty to get out the vote. And as we had last week, Mary Allball made a good case, and Les Shreve, who put together this program, the roll-in that we've just seen, did an excellent job. Debbie Thacker Wilfong and her co-workers, poll workers, and others in her office have organized an efficient voting mechanism. So even now, leading up to May the 8th, you can vote early through next Saturday. I think that's the 5th of May. So there's an opportunity to vote, many opportunities to vote, and we want to get the vote up to 25% higher than it's been in recent elections. Let's talk now. Let's talk a little about the heart of the matter is, because on a program like Tender Loving Care, I like to more than scratch the surface. I like to get down deep, and I want to go back to what Paul was saying in Romans when he said that that we are to present ourselves as living sacrifices. What does that mean? Besides being willing to die, of course, for our nation, for our families, for our faith. Living sacrifice, certainly all of these. But there are a few other traits here. And I thought, wouldn't it be neat if we could let our love be genuine? Paul is saying that. What is more genuine than reading up on the candidates, studying up on the issues, knowing in your heart of hearts what our community does need to change to be a better place, and then vote? That's a genuine act, isn't it? I saw a sign on a church recently that said, love is an action word, and voting is an action word. So let love be genuine. I think that's one trait. Hate what is evil. There are a lot of evil things that we need to change in our world, and we hate it, don't we? But one of the acts of hating, or again as an action word, is to vote. Vote out what is evil. And we're not here to talk about what one candidate may represent or another candidate, but we know that each of us can pick a cause and know that's evil, and we want to fight against that. And we want to also lift up other things. It's easy when you're a soldier fighting overseas to know the enemy. You're there to fight an enemy, you're at war. But in our society, we have war on different things. We have war on drugs. Drugs are evil, and we need to hate drugs. We need to rid our community of that. So there's things like this we can debate and talk about at a time of an election, and then vote the candidate who will do the most to help those things. Hold fast to what is good. Another trait. We have many good things in our community, traditions. We're going to be having the Strawberry Festival once again soon, and that's a local tradition, and it's a wonderful tradition, but we can hold fast to what is good. Family life is good, and I'm sure that the soldiers, if you ask a soldier who's fighting, the American Legion members, like Mary Albaugh, why were you in the service? Why did you do that? They're going to say very quickly, I did that for my family. I wanted to uphold what is good. I wanted to have a safe place to raise children and grandchildren. And elections are times to assert that too, and to say, let's get our priorities in order. Let's not, this is from my heart, let's not overspend. Let's balance our budgets and have something for our grandchildren, and not make them indebted for us overindulging ourselves. Other traits that Paul wants to lift up, he said, outdo one another in showing honor. Outdo one another in showing honor. Now, we're only allowed to vote once. We can't outdo others by voting twice or three times, but it's an honor to vote. It's a privilege of citizenship to vote. And I saw a lady picture in the paper recently. She's apparently in her 60s, and she's voting for the first time. And what an honor. She's exercising that honor. And so it's like all of us. If we're going to get that 25% higher vote number, it's going to begin with one person voting, and then another person voting, and another person voting. People who have not necessarily voted before, but recognizing what an honor that is to be voting. Paul goes on and says, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. We have had tragedies in our community in the past year, a couple years. Many of them have been around young people dying involving drugs and alcohol. Those are tragedies that when it comes to an election time, we can look at the candidates, look at their platform, look at what we need to be making a priority to have clean, drug-free, alcohol-free communities. And then we fight for those. Maybe that's more law and order. Maybe that's more rehab for people who have been caught in the web of drug and alcohol abuse. It certainly is help for families who are suffering. Children are innocent, but they suffer if the parents are abusing drugs or alcohol. All those things come to the forefront, are subject to debate here at a time of an election. Going on with Paul's list here, do not lack in zeal, be ardent in spirit. I always like to vote for someone when they run for office, if they believe in themselves, if they are showing zeal for what they cause that they have. If they don't show that, then how do I know that they're going to stick to it, that they're going to apply themselves and really going to be a good, strong candidate to get the job done? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. We need to be ardent. We need to hold zeal. Time for one more thought here. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty. Do not associate with but associate with the lowly. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. I think each of us, when we vote, we're voting as a democracy. It's the will of the people, and you have a will. I have a will. We all go into a voting booth. We vote in secret. And then the votes are counted, and the will of the people is what emerges. And there's wisdom in that. I think it was Churchill who said that this was one of the hardest systems there is, and maybe one of the worst systems there is, except for every other system. And he was implying that that the will of the people in democracy is maybe messy at times, but it's certainly worthy. Well, it's upon us once again. We can vote now. The American Legion has thrown down the gauntlet to us. The people, poll workers, everyone are ready for the vote. It's just up to you now to cast your vote. We're going to increase the number of voters by 25%. We'll find out, and stay tuned, and we'll see you. Until the next time, this is Dr. Greenbrier Ahlman thanking you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Special thanks to Channel 3 for this opportunity to come your way each week.